If you've been searching selling house tips on the internet, you're going to find out there's a ton of advice out there to give you. The problem is that most of that information and that advice is outdated. And the compounding issue with that is outdated advice from even 2 years ago can cost you a lot of money. So here is what's changed. In many parts of DFW right now, there's a lot of inventory. In fact, in your neighborhood, I would suspect, even without knowing your neighborhood, there's probably at least 7 other homes for sale. So think of it this way. If you're a home buyer looking in your neighborhood, you've got choices. Not only do you have choices, but you can now negotiate harder. So an unsuspecting seller who's coming on the market, they may be in for a shock. So let's get prepared properly. So let's talk pricing. You've probably heard this idea, hey, you can price it a little bit high now, you can always bring it down later. So that may have worked in the past. It is an absolute disaster today. Here's why. When a home hits the market, the first 7 to 14 days is going to be when you're going to get the most amount of attention. So what happens is when you're overpriced, most buyers won't negotiate. What they will do is they'll say, let's skip it altogether. Once you start chasing the market down with price reductions, you lose all of your leverage. So smart sellers in this market is they're pricing strategically from day one, and they're not pricing it based on emotion, and they're not pricing it based on what they hope they can get. Most selling house tips don't talk about buyer psychology. Buyers have extremely short attention spans. So what's happening is when they come to see your house, they've already seen about 10 or 15 other homes online. When they walk into your house, they're not just looking at your house, but now you're competing for their attention. So you need to do everything in your power to not only get their attention, but to keep their attention. Simple things like a clean presentation, a great first impression, and even a simple highlight sheet that goes over all of the benefits of this home can make your house more memorable to that buyer. Buyers don't always remember every home, but they will remember how a home made them feel. The third shift we're seeing is in negotiations. You know, a lot of sellers would love to have multiple offers, have a bidding war on their home. And in some markets that can still happen, but for the most part, that is not going to happen. What they are seeing is they're seeing prices come down. They're seeing a request for a seller contribution or possibly a rate buy down. So the best thing a seller can do is get ahead of it. And what I mean by that is build that into your strategy of how you market the home and how you promote the home. So possibly put that incentive in to, first of all, proper pricing, but also consider that, hey, they may request a seller contribution towards their closing costs. So maybe we can figure out a way how to give that to them at the very beginning and bake it into the overall presentation. So when you hear selling house tips and it's from, a few years back, just be aware the advice may not be wrong, it just may be a little bit outdated. When you're selling your house, you need to be aware of what's happening today and what's happening local. What's happening across the country is completely different. In fact, even within the state, markets change. Even within DFW, subdivisions have different speed of selling and what is useful for selling. So, hey, if you're thinking about selling your home in the near future or even the next year or so, and you need some help with the strategy, pricing, or hey, even preparation, let me know. Love to talk it through with you.